Hey friends, I am Marie with Living Felt, and today we are needle felting a little 2D robin onto 100% wool felt. This project was originally recorded live during our weekly show called Woolly Wednesday. You can catch that Wednesdays at 2 o'clock Central on Facebook. Our page is Living Felt. Or you can hit the subscribe button below and be notified anytime we upload a new video. We usually upload these the day after, but you're here right now, so let's jump right into our project. Thank you all so much for being here. Happy Woolly Wednesday. Today we are needle felting a little 2D robin. I don't have it in front of me. This is what we're working on today. So if you're just jumping in, this is our tutorial. Some of you already have kits, so while you're saying hi, let us know if you're going to be felting along with us. Let us know if you got the kit. And I know that some people also downloaded the support document because you may have already had supplies or you wanted a little guide. For those of you who are brand new, we are going to just break it down to each of the major steps and get as much detail into our piece today as we can and make sure that we get everyone enough guidance to go forward and finish your image. So thanks for being here. I want to say hi to a few people, and let me find us.
We've got Leslie Cal Mitchell joining us from Michigan, Deb Jones in North Carolina, Anna Repke from Illinois is with us today.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, Anna, hi Anna. Anna's going to be leading a workshop with us later this month. We're going to be doing sunsets, and if not sure if you're a member of our group, a lot of our friends on the show today are. Our group is called Living Felt Friends, and Anna just posted an awesome monochromatic landscape with a whole bunch of trees in our group. So after this, I hope you'll join our group if you're not already. It's going to ask you to answer 2 questions to get into the group, so read those. Make sure you read our guidelines because you have to post 2 of those to get in the group. Do join us. It's an awesome group with lots of sharing, lots of tips, lots of inspiration, and lots of just good vibes. And our show is always broadcast live afterwards, or broadcast after the live broadcast. We post on YouTube. It usually takes us about a day, but you can catch a higher resolution version of it on YouTube after the live show. So I think that's about it for the housekeeping. Anne's gonna pull us up. Can you pull us up there for me? So for everyone who participates during our show today, your name goes into a hat. We are gonna give away prizes at the end. So stay with us, felt along, and hopefully you'll post your pictures in our group after the show. We are going to be working with our MC1 batting, and I'm going to show you all the supplies. This is how we sell it in individual colors, 2-ounce increments or larger. This is winter blue, which we'll be working with a little bit today. This is our mandarin orange. And I'm going to show you how to create blends and such and how I approach these pictures. But before we get started, I'd love to ask the question, how many of you who are joining us today or even watching the replay or feel like maybe you have a challenge with 2D pictures? And what is that? What's that hurdle that you would like to get over? So just maybe in a sentence or so, post what is the challenge. Maybe you haven't tried a 2D picture yet, or maybe you have and it's not quite looking like you want. Tell us what that challenge is so that hopefully we can answer it or provide some suggestions during the broadcast today. What we're going to be doing is working with our supply kit. We have a little supply kit that accompanies this free video, and it includes all of the colors that we're going to use in our picture, and I'm going to show you how to get a picture onto the fabric. I'm going to be working with 100% wool felt, but you can also use something like linen. This is an example of just like a simple cotton. I don't even think it's a linen. It's like a muslin. It's not too loose of a weave, but you can try different fabrics and you can try different colors. As an example, I chose a semi-warm color for my picture, and I did a little test sample on like a very light gray, and I thought that because this is a winter robin that the light gray kind of muted it too much and made it look too soft. So you can think about testing backgrounds by making little simple versions of your picture and just see how you feel about that background. So that's just a couple of quick suggestions, but today we're going to be working on our apricot 100% wool felt, and we're going to transfer that image right now. So we're going to turn down the cameras and jump right in. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to try and read some of your questions while we're working. All right, so this is our image. It is printed in reverse of the actual image. Here's the actual image, and we're going to look at that in a minute. This is obviously a larger version. So we printed the reverse of the picture and put that into our support document, which Anne's going to provide a link to. And we have our iron-on transfer pen. It's a Sulky iron-on transfer pen. We sell this in the shop, and it's also an option to get it in the kit. You just print out the image on regular computer paper, and you trace around all of the outlines that are meaningful to you. I have already traced around the outside of the bird, including the feet and the eye and the beak. But you might like to go back and trace around some of these major color groupings so that you have a guide when you're putting the wool onto your fabric. This is subjective, completely up to you where you add the emphasis. It's just much easier sometimes to see it on the paper than once you have the wool down. So here I'm also just going to outline the wood stack. And that's it. So you just trace right over the reverse of your image, like I said, as much detail as you want.
A couple of our felting friends want to know, how did you print a reverse image?
Oh, well, I do it in Photoshop, and in our support document, we flipped it reverse for you. But there's some free picture editing utilities online that you can use. Then just center your image wherever you want onto your fabric or your base. And you're going to use a hot, dry iron, which I happen to have right here. So use a hot, dry iron with no steam and turn up the heat all the way. The instructions are on the pen, and I think on the pen package too. And all you have to do is press. It's about a 20-second hold. You don't want to scoot your picture back and forth. I thought this was on. Oh, my iron's off because it's a safety iron. So I'm going to chit chat while we're here. It doesn't take that long. My iron shut itself off. I forgot that it's a smarter than me iron. Turn itself off. How you know when the picture is going through is you're going to see the lines on this side of the paper. So bear with me while my iron turns back on. And there we go. You're going to start to see the lines through the back of the paper, and that's when you know that the ink's gotten hot enough to transfer. Dry hot iron, about 20 seconds. So see how you can see all the lines now? And that's how you know it's transferred. And you can usually get a couple of transfers off of one iron, one image, one tracing. Yep.
And Beverly asks, doesn't the transfer pen show through light colors?
No, just put down enough wool that it doesn't. Here, out of the way. Okay. So now we have our image, and we do sell the pen in a brown. Yellow doesn't show up well on most things except for like on white. You might try yellow. We have it in orange, brown, red. We don't carry purple anymore, but you might try a color that's more akin to your drawing if you want. And you can also hand draw it or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to get our fibers, and let me show you all the wool that comes in the supply pack. And it is right here, and these are the actual quantities except where I've pulled wool off. So this is our MC1 batting. You're going to get it in caramel, clay, pecan, willow, dark chocolate, winter blue, red grapefruit, mandarin, mango, black onyx, winter gray, aspen gray, cotton white under here. And then this is our CX2 winter white, which is a different type of fiber. It's a little more coarse, but it's very, very white. All of this fiber is going to come in your kit. Okay? So once we get started, the next thing I like to do is get my colors, all my colors ready. But before we do that, I want to ask you, when you look at this image and you look at this area right here, tell me what colors would you choose to tackle this part of our image? And I'm going to wait just a second.
Yep, I think our delay is a little bit longer
Okay,
than
yep.
usual.
We are on a little bit of a delay, so if we have some downtime, I'm gonna just see what you all think about these colors here on our bird. And while we're doing that, I'm gonna pull in a few things for you to look at.
So Lois says yellow orange. Wendy says mango, grapefruit, and red. Sue says
That's fun.
orange.
Cool. So you're seeing more than one color, you're seeing more than one tone. And Anne, what kind of response did we get when we asked about the challenges with 2D? What were some of the things that people said?
The most popular were shading and proportions.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so shading and proportions. So what I'm going to suggest as an approach is a novice approach, because that's what I am. I'm not a trained artist like a lot of people are who might be teaching this. So we're going to look at the way I approach it, because I don't have any formal training. Where is the other one? Oh, is he? Oh, he's here. Because I don't have any formal training. So these are kind of the phases that I see going through with a picture like this. When you're looking at proportions, and if proportions are a challenge, I really want to encourage that you go ahead and get some kind of image transfer or tracing of your project to serve as a guide. This is not a cheat. Lots of artists transfer their image, even if they drew the original image, onto their canvas, whatever that is, before they get started. In watercolor, you often see the pencil lines underneath. In oils and acrylics, they're able to cover it up. Muralists will use a projector. Some people use carbon paper. But if proportions are your challenge, I encourage you to start with a tracing, and then also to start with smaller subjects so that you start to train your eye. When it comes to shading, my approach might be different than someone who is more experienced than myself. What I like to do is start with like a draft coloring, move to a little more detail with more topical applications, and then more detail with stronger and stronger colors. But when I start this first draft, I start with blends as opposed to solid colors like 99% of the time. So what we're going to do is make up 5 major blends right now for this picture. And Anna's going to post those for you so that you can make your blends as well. And I'm going to show you how I do that. Are we doing good, Anne? I wonder if we'll zoom in on the live camera just a little bit so we can see what's happening. Anne is posting those blends. Did you post them already?
I haven't.
Okay, so she's going to post those. Let me show you how we do it. The first blend is mango orange, and that's what we're going to start the base of our little birdie's face and chest right here. When I do a blend, I start with amounts about this much of our batting. It's just a thin little bit. It's about, a little bit bigger than a 50-cent piece or smaller than my palm. Some of you have seen this 100 times and some of you already do it. You can split the thickness of each one so that you kind of stack it and get it layered. And then all we do is we pull through the colors. Even if you're working with roving or top or a different fiber, pull all the way through so that you're not tearing the fibers. Pull through and restack, pull through and restack. I like to start with blends because really life plants, animals, people, hair, fur, trees, rocks are not one solid color. And I think sometimes when we start filling in areas with just a big blob of a solid color, it actually just is harder to see our way to the picture right away. So get a good blend. It doesn't have to be 100% homogeneous. You don't have to use hand cards or dog brushes or anything like that. You can blend it just with your fingers. And I find that I like the colors to actually still be at least a little distinct within the blend, because there are parts that you're going to want to make lighter and parts that you're going to want to make darker or stronger or bolder.
And Jennifer asks, could you use a cotton pillowcase as a background?
Let's not jump off of blends. When it comes to backgrounds, just experiment. If the weave is too tight on your background, the fabric will pucker. So the more detail you start to add, it may start to pucker, and that's not always the case. But definitely experiment with the amount of fiber that you're going to apply to your piece, because lots and lots of fabrics will work. So just experiment with that. Okay, so we're going to get 5 major blends, and then what we're going to do is work off of those blends. Okay, so this is a really fun little blend. You can see that it's orangey. It's no longer orange. It's no longer mango. There are parts that are more orange and there's parts that are more yellow. The 5 major blends that we're doing are mango and orange, clay and willow. And this robin, based on this picture, you may see different colors than me. And I'm not super exact. I'm okay with things being near. I'm not going for a hyper realism on this bird, but this is what I chose, is clay and willow. And then at some parts you're going to want to add more clay. At some parts you're going to want to add a dark brown or even a lighter color. This right here is caramel and cotton white, which we're going to use here. And then in parts you can add a little clay in there as well. You could also use caramel and aspen, which is a little more gray. It just depends on what you see in your picture. One's a little brighter and one's a little darker and a little like more muted. And you could use either, and you can use them both together. We do an aspen and winter, and one is not really used by itself. We end up blending this with this and this to get these little blue areas in our bird. And then this is clay and caramel, and I use that on the legs, but we're actually going to blend that with blend 1. So what's going to happen is we're going to start with our major blends first for filling in our bird, and then we're going to do additional blends, either with single colors or other blends, to start filling things in. Okay, everybody ready? Doing good? Okay, cool. I'm going to leave this here for the moment. For a reference image, sometimes you might want to pull that up on your phone. Does anybody here needle felt in their lap, or am I the only one? I needle felt in my lap at night, and what I've been doing is I don't have my phone here. Do you have your phone in your pocket, Anne? I'm stealing Anne's phone. What I've been doing is putting my phone on my foam pad, and then I put little like glass head pins here to hold it in place so that I can have my foam pad angled and have my phone like right next to my picture when I'm doing something small. So just a thought for my fellow lap felters. I'm going to start with this eye right here, and you can start with it 100% black or add a little pinch of color if you don't want it to be 100% black to start. I'm going to add a pinch of willow just to get that in place for us, and then at the end I go back and trace the eye with black, black, black. So I'm going to do that just to kind of get it marked off and not lose that in all the coloring. The needles I'm using today are a 38 star, a 40 triangle, and a 42 triangle, and I'm going to tell you why. In the past, I've used just the 42 triangle, and I've said I'll do a whole picture with a 42 triangle, and I've realized why. And that's because I'm tentative. I'm a little tentative because I don't have a lot of experience laying down color in a 2D environment and getting the image I want. So I realize that that allows me to go a little bit more slowly when it feels like the terrain is new. But also the 42 triangle you'll see is less aggressive, the yellow one, and it's going to push the wool through less quickly than like a 38 star. A 38 triangle star is a much more aggressive needle and will really push that wool in. So I didn't shape the wool at all. I just put down a little blob, and I want to stay within the lines. So I'm going to start to put down the color in this area right here, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about a little bit more about a background. Need to come in a little bit?
Yeah, I'm just gonna come in a little.
Okay, and I'll try and keep my hands out of the way too, but here we go. So I don't fuss too much over the specific detail. Someone who's more experienced than me may go for detail 100% level right from now, but I find that's more challenging for me. I do better if I can start with sort of this target version. And so the first thing I'm going to do is just take my blend. I'm not going to worry about it too much, and I'm just going to start filling in these areas. So someone mentioned, don't the dark lines show through? And we want to get enough color on there that they don't. So I go over the line in the first place, and if you're tentative, use your yellow needle and start needle felting. Like, you can needle felt right on the line. You can kind of see it under there. If you can't, then peek. And I don't know if you can see this right here, but notice that I can fold this back, and if I want a really sharp line, I can fold it back too far and then push it like, you know, like if you were poofing hair, you're styling hair and kind of poofing it up, and you can needle felt it right onto that line. It depends on how exact you're trying to be. Down here where the fibers go onto the breast, sometimes I just scoot it a little bit because later I want to go back and add that overlapping of the layers because it's feathers. It's not a baseball. You know, it's got soft edges to it, meaning the feathers have soft edges to them. So the first thing I do is just try and get the wool into those major shapes.
Brenda asks, does it matter what part you start with first after doing the eyes?
No,
or order?
I start with where I feel like is a major area. I think you just start wherever you feel inspired and motivated. That's what I would say. In a picture like this, because we're going to go back and add so much detail that it doesn't even matter. Some people might start with the darkest areas first, and I've done that in our cardinal kit. In some cases, we start with like putting in the major dark lines. But in this one, I'm suggesting a different approach, which is just treat it like a draft of color and basically, you know, get your major color areas filled in with these 5 major blends. It's just another approach.
And Kathy asks, do you want to cover the line or just meet it?
Well, I want to cover it, especially on the exterior. And it's okay, like if you want to let it taper into this area a little bit, if you're comfortable with that, you can do that, as long as it's not stronger than the color you're putting on top, unless you want it there for shading. So I'm kind of just going straight for the line. And my fiber is dense enough that the fabric underneath is not showing through. If your fabric beneath is a very contrasting color, if you're not getting enough fiber on, you will know it. You'll know it because it'll show through. So I tend to lay my fiber over the line and then bring it back. That's my approach. It's just scoot it back in. Sorry, I know I keep putting I tend to do this, hold my finger here so that I can focus right here. So sorry if that's blocking y'all's view. I do want to, you know, color within the lines, so to speak, but you can taper over a little bit, especially for blending the edges. If, like I said, if you're doing something with real hard lines, like a baseball or something, you may not want to do that. Okay. Any questions right now, Anne, that I should address?
Shona asks, or she says, I always tend to snap my needles when I'm pulling wool around edges. Should I try to do the edge first before I felt them too hard to stop this?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the needle to pull the wool. Instead, use your finger to guide it around an edge. So notice that we pull the wool now, or sometimes we anchor the wool with a needle, but use your hand to pull the wool, and don't pull the wool with your needle after it's needle felted in place. Now, sometimes you can rough it like that, if it's loose, if you want to rough it and scoot it around, but you shouldn't be putting any sideways pressure on the tip of that needle, because it will bow bend break. That's how the sequence. So I suggested 3 different types of needles so that you can experiment with how they feel. It may be that around these real tight areas you don't want to put as much density of fiber down, and so you go with a lighter gauge needle. Play with those needles and see how they feel to you. And I promise that 10 different people are going to have 10 different preferences. Some people like the 40 spiral, some whatever. Some people like the 38 star. So play with a few different ones and see how they feel. What did we include in the kit, Anne? Nothing. No, needles are separate. So needles are separate from the supply pack. Okay, so we're about to have this little area filled in right here. And I'm sorry I can't read questions or your notes while I'm needle felting, but just a note on backgrounds. Someone said, can I use pre-felt if I don't have the supplies? One of the things we talk about when we talk about doing 2D pictures is how much the background can handle what you're putting into it. And pre-felts tend to go from lofty to compressed as you start adding this detail. And what happens, your picture goes from this size, even if it's an eye or the face, and as you needle felt into something that's lofty, like a pre-felt, it squishes down and squishes down and squishes down. You start to lose surface area, and that becomes a challenge if the picture is too detailed. I have a needle felted dog picture that was done onto a pre-felt. It's behind me, and I'll try and show you that maybe before we go, just so you can get a sense of what I'm saying. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and put in this brown, and while we do that, I'm going to put in the brown, and I'm going to have Anne go ahead and post the secondary blends, because we're going to use one right in here, and I'm going to use it early on so you can see it. Now notice how I'm just kind of guiding the wool as I go, and normally I'm much closer to the wool than I am now. You may be more comfortable just tearing off this little tuft and bunching it down. Do what's comfortable for you, but I do encourage you to needle felt this flat. It's easy when you're doing a picture like of a dog facing you or an animal facing you that it might be difficult to see the perspective, and so you start mounding up volume. If that's your goal, to do an image that's like a relief, then go ahead and do it. But I would say if you're trying to build your skill here in the 2D environment, challenge yourself by starting with small pictures, simple subjects, and perspectives that aren't too difficult for you to grasp. Sometimes when we see a face rather than in profile, but we see a little bit of the other side of the face, it's easy to want to put in more of the other side of the face than is actually visible. And I know that's the case for me. Even when I'm working off a picture, I've had asked my husband, what's wrong with this? He's like, well, the jowl is too long on the other side, or whatever. So try to start with some simple subjects. Okay, Anne posted our next level blending. Now, this little part of our bird here, when we look at our picture, see how there's just a little bit of color right there, a little bit of blue. And this picture, the color has been enhanced, so it shows well for us, but there's just a little bit of blue in there. So what I do is I take this color, our Willow Clay blend, and I just blend in a pinch of winter blue. Just 2 little bits. to get something this small, which is kind of just a little bit dirty. That blue no longer looks so bright. It has just a hint of the blue in it, and we can add it, use my picture here, we can add it right here and in just little amounts until you're happy with it. Just a little tiny pinch, not too much. Okay. And I'm just going to put that like right here, just trailing off here next to the eye. I'm using my 42 so I don't drive it too deep. I already have a nice little base in there.
And Christine asks, what blend are you using at the very top of the head?
This is the Clay Willow blend, number 2. Blend number 2, Clay and Willow. We're going to add the blends to the support document after we post the video to YouTube. They're not in there now because I didn't want people to be confused or feel like they had homework. So we will add the blends, and even if you've already downloaded it, you can download it again. Now I'm going to do, I didn't trace my little line here in between here and here. On this little belly, you could use even just the aspen is such a light gray that it might look white. You could use aspen all by itself, just like this, and then add color on top, or you could blend it with whatever you're seeing. Like you could blend it with white already. I'm going to lay down aspen and then add the shadow and the highlights afterwards. So in this case, I am laying down a solid color. Okay, Anne, hit me.
Let's see. Diana says, I'm still loving this blending technique. Anna shares, blue always pops up in everything. I love watching for blues and purple.
Oh, that is a really good point. Like eyes, when you're doing an eye on a dog or something like that, blues can be in a lot of blacks. And purples, I agree. So now this might seem a little dark. If you were sitting right here next to me, it might seem a little dark for his belly, but it's such a light color that we can go back and add the highlights, and I even add blues in here as well, a little bit of blues. And because this is so light, we can absolutely taper it, over to this area. So it's pretty rare that I put down a solid, but I think that in the belly here that it works. Are some people felting along with us today?
I think we have more folks posting that they're not felting along today, but they'll do it
after.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then I'm going to try and get to as much detail as I can, and y'all can kind of see how we're getting to this point. Before I jump ahead, I will add, looking for my white. Avoid bright whites. Avoid bright whites except in select places. Like in this picture, we only used the CX2 in the snow and we didn't use it anywhere on the bird. So avoid things getting too bright white. And see here where the chest, I don't know the parts of the bird, y'all, so y'all forgive me for that. You can lay this cotton white right on top of there and get a real natural blend. So this yellow needle is really good for shallow strokes and applying things without getting too many needle marks because it's not too aggressive. So go back over your belly area following your picture and notice where you have whites and then where we have a little bit of brown or darker colors. So like here on the side of my bird, I'm going to jump right back over here and just add a little bit of brown right along the side of the chest. I'm interested to see how this pre-blending works for you all and whether this approach is helpful in any way once you get going. So hopefully you'll share in the group. And then on the belly, when I get ready, I'm going to go back and add what you can see here are a little bit of darks and a little bit of play on these other blends. But let's jump over here to the feathers. Plumage, feathers, whatever. And I use the same For the darkest areas, I use the same Willow Clay blend. And my wing is not as perfect as the true wing, but honestly, I'm okay with that. I was telling Anne that if I was going for hyper realism, I honestly would work on a bigger picture because I'm not so skilled. My pen, my transfer pen is not so fine. And I think this is a tiny subject to go for hyper realism. I was going more for greeting card. You know, honestly, just a little more for like a greeting card. And if y'all want to come back next week, I think what we're going to do is look at some ways to use or finish your picture. We can look at a couple of other pictures, how you might mount them on a canvas, other ways you might display them. Yeah, a couple of things like that. So this is this is a blend, but it still to me feels very solid, you know, filling an entire area with it. So you'll want to go back and add the lighter notes and the darker notes in your wing. I'm going to fill in this little, I'm going to get the major color for this little area next, just to kind of bring my whole little bird together.
Shauna shares, I can't wait to try this. It is amazing how one little bit of brown added in the right place lifts it from a ho-hum image to something really special.
Oh, that's so sweet. I can't wait to see yours. You know, I have every confidence that most of the pictures posted by other people are going to be better than mine. And honestly, I'm really okay with that because the day that I had the courage to try my first picture, I was just so thrilled that it even looked like anything because I was convinced that I just couldn't do 2D. I was pretty much convinced, and I just think it's really fun and meditative, and I hope that you'll, you know, be a student. That's what I've had to learn to do, is to kind of be a student, slow down, look at a smaller area, not jump ahead or try and get something done so fast, but try and train my eye to look and see what is there. Here what you'll see is this bird filled in may look much lighter than this guy, and that's because what I try and see is just what's that main color, and then or a majority color, and then go back and add detail.
A couple of our felting friends have noticed that you haven't peeled the image off the felt
No, I don't, because what happens if I peel the image off right now, it is going to create loft underneath. So where the wool is underneath, this is not flat. This is not flat either, but under here it's not flat. And so as soon as I peel it off, it's going to add a little dimension, and I would rather just keep it level. It's totally fine. I'm not killing my foam at all. And I'm not using like a 36 gauge needle or something so aggressive that's going to chew up my foam. Okay, real quick in here, on this plumage, you'll notice, let's see, did I include it in the blend? I didn't. So, but in here, there's a little bit of blue in our bird, but it's not as dark as the stuff that we used over here. So we didn't include this in the blend guide, but that's because the blend guide is just a starter and to help get your brain thinking about things. So I'm going to blend a little bit of my blend that I have right here with this blue, and if it feels too light, then I can grab something like a little bit of clay or a little bit of caramel, whatever feels comfortable. In this case, I'm grabbing some clay, just a little bit to darken it. So play with some little tiny pieces. Let me get this blue in here, and we'll just keep working a little bit on detail together.
Claire asks, if you put wool down and decide you don't like it in that place, can you try and remove it, or
Yeah.
you just felt over it?
No, you can try and remove it. If it has some volume, you might want to try and remove it, but you absolutely can on these pictures. Now, you know, test it out before you go too far. So you might go, oh, how do I like that? We just start tacking it in. Tack it in with your finer needle, your 42 rather than your 38, so that you can change your mind. So like if I didn't like that right there, I could go, oh, never mind, don't want you there. once you get it really tacked down, that will be a little bit more of a challenge. So in the beginning, I said to you all that I tend to be a little more tentative. Some people, when they're needle felting their pictures, are going to go straight to super detail like this from the beginning and work their way the entire way down. But my eye is not all that trained. I have to kind of go in these stages, and that's what works for me. So for those of you who are thinking like, well, that doesn't really look like the bird, that's why, because I kind of have to go slow and ask myself, what's missing? What do I need to add? What's missing? What do I need to add? So just for fun, I'm going to add a little dark brown. Go for really dark colors versus black. You know, avoid black to start and start with something lighter than black. And one of the ways we start to trim out lines and things like this is you can take your fiber just a little bit like this and start at one point, and then I just call it drafting. Draft it down to trace out that line. Just draft it down, pull a little bit. Now this is our MC1 batting. It's different than like a New Zealand Corriedale, which is a sliver. This batting you can treat it like the long fibers of a sliver, but it's actually a little bit easier to guide and tame because it's crimpy and nice. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of dark right here at the very base of the wing. This is the kind of picture that I could do 4 or 5 times and still not do it the same way every time, because I'm still learning. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of dark, and then you can go back and add some in the wings. You don't have to try and follow, you know, the image exactly, but try and add a little more detail in the same way just by drafting the brown. And I'm sorry if my fingers are in the way, but I'm on this side and you're over there. Someone asked me why we did turn the cameras around on our last video, or one of our last videos, and I'll tell you that we're working on it. So our technology will change a little bit later this year, and we'll get a little bit better. Now in here, I want this a little bit darker than this, but not as dark as that, I think. So I'll just take a little bit of this and blend it with my blend. Just blend it with your blend and give it a go. It may not work every time, but this is about experimenting and having fun and finding your way. I can't wait to see what everyone is saying. Of course, I'll have to go back and see what you all are, how this is going for you. Now, I don't know how much darker that is, but I'm going to try it right there in the little base of my wing. And what I want to do, so we just have like 15 minutes left. So the tail is going to be very much like the wing. Let me jump up here and let's look up here in the bird so we can start adding a little more detail with one of our secondary blends. Doing good?
Doing good.
Okay, so you see on the secondary blends, the next level blends that Anne posted, one of the things we do is we take mango and orange with pecan for shading, and then I also take mango and orange with the red grapefruit for shading, and or detail, whatever you want to call it. So here's red grapefruit, and I'm just going to add a little bit of red grapefruit to this mango. And you could just put red grapefruit right on top, but I'm not always feeling that confident. Honestly, I don't know what else to say, but I'm not. Like, I have to go slow. So here's a little bit of mango. So then, this is pecan. And so I'm going to blend these two together so that I have a little bit of darker lines in the plumage. And if it doesn't seem dark enough, add a little more or add clay. And then for the orangier stuff, I'm using this red grapefruit blend here. So then you want to really follow the lines of the feathers, as opposed to, some people will look at this picture and see this sort of triangle. See the sort of triangle of color here? Some people will put it down in a triangle. And so my challenge to you is to try and follow the lines of the feathers, the way the fur or feathers or whatever you're working on flow, and then maybe come back and you can add just a little layer of highlight right there rather than trying to lay this down in a triangle. I hope that makes sense. And this is what I'm going to do. Find your way with your needle, decide which one you like. And so starting almost right off the beak, I'm just going to follow the lines of the breast. And I just trail down a piece. Sometimes the red is in there and sometimes the hot orange is in there and sometimes it's not. But it keeps me from making it look too striped. Like if I were to lay down the hot orange, I don't feel like I have the skill to control those colors in the blend, and I feel like I would make it look too stripey. And this keeps it looking, I don't know, maybe a little more natural. Can y'all see that level of detail?
Try to get in a little.
Anne's going to try and get in a little more closely. So I'm just dragging those fibers down. And after I put on bits of these, then I'm going to go back and add the ruddier ones with the pecan. So just again, following the lines. I don't want to go too far underneath because under my bird, this is really bright yellow. But you do want to get a nice amount of color on there. Is it showing up okay?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. I know it's hard to see, y'all, and I appreciate your patience. The one on YouTube will probably be a little bit sharper, we have a secondary camera that we run for the YouTube capture, so hopefully it does a little better. Okay, this is the caramel blend. It's a little more ruddy, and I'm actually going to switch to a little more aggressive needle. Some areas are just a little bit darker on my bird, and I want to capture that. And my blends may not work for you. You may see something different, and I really encourage you to just follow your own guidance on this. See, go with what your eye sees, not what my eye sees. I'm just sharing my approach, and your approach might be really different. But see how we can start to get some of those little notes in there. Now, let's say you put down something and it feels a little too strong. You can go back, take your other blend and just blend your other blend right over the top of it again, so that color, that strong color that you put down is more like a shadow underneath. So go back and make your blends, and you're going to end up with all this mess like I have here, which is really lots of fun. After a while, you won't be able to use it. But just keep putting on that color and adding that detail in these areas. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to keep working on this, but for fun, why don't we just add a little more depth in here? We still doing good, Anne? Okay. We may as well. Let's just have a little fun with this. So like right here, we want him not to feel so flat. We want him to feel a little rounded. So I'm going to take just a little bit of clay right there on my bird. See how he looks just a little rounded there, and that little tuft is underneath. We can, for the shading, we can just take this little tiny pinch of fiber, and notice that it's not solid, it's open. And because it's open, and because we're using this batting, we can lay it right down there. And in fact, you can piece a lot of your picture without tacking it down and see how you feel doing it like this. And I do that especially like on a bigger picture. You might come in and add a little more white here, so this feels a little bit brighter, and that hasn't been tacked down yet. You might come in and add a little more of this fiber here and not tack it down yet, and get those things in place, and then tack them down once you're kind of happy with them. So I always tend to do that with my light shallow strokes with your 42 light shallow strokes. You can even go a little bit at an angle like this, tacking it down, at an angle rather than poking it straight down. Notice the impact that your angle of your needle has on your picture. Here, where the chest, I don't know the parts of the bird again, but where these feathers come down onto these, go back and take a little pinch of your fibers. And just like we did a second ago, you've got this little piece that's almost see-through. Lay it down right there so that it's a little more gentle and the line isn't so hard as we made it earlier. And blend those two, because the bird is going to be a little more natural. If you have a hard line that you don't like, you can try and drag it with your needle as long as it's not anchored all the way through to the other side. But then just come back, instead of like trying to move it too much, you can just come back and put a little soft bit of fiber over the top to kind of blend it. Everything's sticking to me. And that might be a little light, but take your time and find your way. Let me see, what's anyone saying, Anne? What should I cover in our last few minutes together? And I can just keep going, but what should I address?
So somebody asked what blend you wanted to use for the feet.
Okay, for the feet. For the feet, I made a blend of, did I print it on my paper? For the feet, oh, I didn't print it. It was blend number 5, right, which was caramel and clay. But then I take caramel and clay, and I'm going to blend it with my orange and mango. That's just what I saw. So I blended blend number 5 and blend number 1 together to get something that I think is very lively. It's got browns, but it's got oranges in it, and then you can go back and hit the detail in whatever colors. Now, in reality, this bird's so tiny. In the real picture, you see so little detail of the feet, and in this picture, he's so big, it's obviously a lot more obvious. But for mine, that's what I did. Blend number 1 and blend number 5 all together. And then you could go back, and add mango where you think it needs to be more yellow, or dark brown where you think it needs to be brown. But this just gives you a little more of a lively brown-orange blend. Sorry, go ahead, Ann.
Judy asks, could a reverse needle help with blending here?
I don't tend to use a reverse needle for blending, because you're going to pull, if you use a reverse needle with the foam, you're going to pull foam up. You could pull foam up, and that would not be desirable. So I wouldn't use a reverse needle that way, but I just know that reverse needles tend to grab onto the foam. They're going to grab onto whatever's underneath. Now with the feet, y'all, I tend not to put in I may not put in the feet in great detail until I have my snow in place, the brown and all my snow. So work on that as fits for how you see the picture. Because it's harder to get the colors in between all of those after you have all this down, these little points. But just go with what works for you. I'm going to put a little brown on the toe anyway. Yeah.
Kelly Golke shares, I wanted to say thank you for all you do to help us.
Oh, man. You all are my therapy, I think, Coming to you every week gives me purpose, and these great gals we get to work with, it's just an awesome, I just say, how can I say, my pleasure, you're welcome, thank you. I love it so much. Okay, so I personally consider this little bird is still way in the draft mode. And what I do then is just keep going back to look and see what would I do differently, On the beak, you might, I wouldn't go with the darkest brown. You might want to go with dark brown like we did on the wings, a dark brown and the plumage blend, and then go back, notice where there's a little bit of highlight and something a little bit darker. So don't let if you make the beak not solid, if you go back and fill it in, it's just going to look a little more lively. And I know we're almost done, but I hope that you'll take a couple of stabs at your little bird, and don't be in too much of a rush. That's kind of one of the things I want to encourage, is don't be in a big hurry to get it finished unless it's just not fun. If you're having fun, spend a little time get in the detail. It's not about doing it fast. I think it's about enjoying the process. And so here in these last couple of minutes, I know we're going to give away some prizes, but let me just trim out this eye, because the eye right now maybe doesn't have as much detail as it does in our picture. So once you have all that in, you can come back and trim right around the eye, just like we did. Just draft the fiber like this. Notice how delicate these MC1 bats are and how easy they are to work with. And we just add a little bit of darkness under the eye, and we can add a little bit of light right up here where it is on our picture too.
And a couple of our felting friends want to know before we go today if we can turn the robin around so they can see it from the right way.
The one that we've done?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure. Yeah, and I appreciate y'all working upside down with me. I wish we do have we have the technology to go the opposite way, but not here. And so that's been part of our challenge, is being patient. Sometimes you just got to wait for good things to manifest. I'm going to put a little bit of white. I'm going to try and put a little bit of white there. So I'm going to turn him around so you can see him. And please remember that he is in draft mode. And I don't work this fast at home even. If I got this far in an evening, I would just be happy as a clam. I would. I'm in no rush to get him done. So I'm going to peel him off, and you can see how fuzzy he is under there. Let's see if that's on the camera. This is where I want to get to, a little more finished. This is a little more of a draft. And does that show up on both our cameras? Anne's gonna dial you in there. I've got glasses somewhere. I made a big old mess. Does that work? Okay, they're saying yes. Okay, good. All right, so I think we're gonna turn the cameras up. If y'all just bear with us 1 second. Well, that was a speed version for me. This is the one that I made with you today in our 1 hour needle felting session. I hope you'll give it a try. You certainly don't have to get our kit. We will upload this video onto YouTube tomorrow. If not tonight, we'll do our best. And I hope you'll keep working on yours and add just as much detail as you want to. We have a free PDF you can download that will be updated once we have the YouTube link ready. And did you post the photo credit?
I did.
Okay, Anne posted the photo credit. This photo came from Wikipedia. If you get photos off the internet, make sure you have permission of the artist to use them. This one came from Wikipedia with the free rights to distribute it, and we included it for free for reference, and we referenced the original photographer. Was it Higgins? Higgins. Is that how you say it? Well, anyway, we did post the link. What is it? Hizget. Yeah, Hizget. It's like from 2010 or something, but it's on Wikipedia. So we want to thank the photographer very much for making this available for everyone, and Wikipedia for posting it. And I hope y'all have fun with it too, and maybe you'll use a different robin, but I'm kind of in love with the robin.
Sure.
Next week, we want to look at a few ways to finish your pieces. I'm going to finish these. I think I should mount that one finally. We'll talk about mounting a picture on a canvas. This one was wet felted and then needle felted detail. But one of the 2D things I want to do with you this year is to wet felt the background and then needle felt a picture. Maybe we can do a landscape together. So if that's of interest to you, definitely post it here. And next week we'll look at ways to mount and finish your pieces. Good? Good. All right, so these girls are itching to give away some prizes. Come on in, y'all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We love to give away prizes, and so for everyone who's been participating, Anne has been feverishly putting your name into her bowl of magic, and we're going to give away 3 prizes. So, ding, ding, ding.
Who's drawn first?
You. I'll hold the basket. Okay. They can.
Okay. Joe Eileen Teasdale.
Come on in, Anne. Get close like you like me. Yay, what was it, Joe? Joe Ellen. Yay, Joe Ellen. What's she win, Anne? Anne knows. Anne knows what the prizes are.
Joe Ellen, you won a needle felting and monarch kit. It's a 2D kit.
So that comes with foam and needles and a little monarch and some pictures you can also trace. And you know what? We'll throw in a transfer pen with that too, so you can transfer the image. And it's just a great start for blending and learning to do 2D. And you could cut it out, make a magnet, make a pin, make a greeting card, whatever. Cool. Okay, let's pick another one.
Alrighty. Jennifer Lynn McMullen.
Yay, Jennifer! What'd she win again?
Jennifer, you won. It's kind of a 2D needle felting supply.
Play kit.
Yeah.
Play pack.
Play pack. So you won a transfer pen, one wool felt sheet, and then an MC1 goodie bag. So you'll have plenty of colors to make your own 2D picture.
Yeah, 12 colors in there of all the same fiber we're using today. Okay, so one more prize. Good to go, good to go.
Oh, am I drawing again?
Go
Yeah,
for it.
yeah, you draw.
I get a twofer. Claire Forrester.
Yay, Claire! What's she win?
Ready, Claire, you won a Robin supply kit.
Yay!
awesome.
And complete with transfer pen.
Complete with transfer pen. So that's a supply pack. It goes with a free video. You can get the download too. The download is just under Learn, and Ann posted a link to that. And we just want to say thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you for being here. We hope that you'll subscribe to YouTube. Hit the bell up on the top of your the little chat window there, and you'll know whenever we go live. And we try and be here every Wednesday. So thanks for joining us, y'all.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Treat yourself well today. You deserve it. Thank you so much for watching today. We hope you guys had fun. We hope you will post your questions below. Hit the subscribe button so you can find out whenever we post a new video. And if you give this project a try, please post it in our Facebook group. It's just facebook.com/groups/Living Felt Friends. Look for us, Living Felt Friends. We hope to see you there, and I hope to see your picture of your robin or whatever you decide to needle felt. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.